Hi folks, Craig here. I use he, him pronouns. I'm joining you from Wurundjeri country today. Thanks for tuning in to the CEO update. A bit of news for you today. First of all, I wanted to talk about a change to our website. We have a new research page, which we're very pleased with. It contains the research contact email, which is research@vimiac.org.au. So that's the point of contact for people with lived experience of mental health issues, trauma or distress, who have a research proposal they'd like VMIAC to promote. Same email address also for academic institutions with an idea about a research proposal as well. And we'll be posting some updates of other research activities that we're involved with on that page. And if you send questions through to the research team, they'll get back to you and probably ask you some key questions about the research that you're interested in and see how we can support. I wanted to talk to you about submissions for the compulsory treatment panel. Our submission for that is being finalised, and we're working with government to develop a project to inform people of their new rights under the Mental Health and Wellbeing Act. So we've done a bit of work developing that proposal, and some funding is coming our way because we know that legislation is not enough to change people's experience of the mental health system. We need to make sure that the legislation is understood and enacted across the system by all of the different people who have various responsibilities in the system. And we need to know that you, consumers, know your rights under the Act. So more information to come out about that over the next 2 weeks. I wanted to talk about new lived and living experience workforce development initiatives and new roles at VMIAC. We have got a number of lived and living experience workforce development initiatives funded by the Department of Health. And over the next 12 months, we'll be collaborating with consumers and stakeholders to do a number of things, including develop content for a new introductory training program for the consumer workforce in line with the Our Future final report. Some of you might have had something to do with that report, the Our Future report. Develop eCPR, hearing voices and alternatives to suicide training. So some of that training you would know has already been developed. So it's a little bit around facilitating people in the workforce having access to that training. And we know that we've heard from people in lived and living experience workforce roles that those particular trainings are really helpful for them and align with consumer values as well. So something else we'll be collaborating to do is support the development of a community of practice for consumer consultants within clinical mental health services. So we know that those roles can sometimes for some people feel a bit isolating. And a community of practice can go a long way towards people feeling connected and being able to discuss some of the issues that occur for them in those roles. So we're looking forward to telling you more about that. Some of you might also know and even have done our Consumers Leading in Governance program. And we developed that last year and had the first and second iteration of that. So something that we're going to be looking at is continuing to provide that program and also looking at micro-credentialing of that program. So getting certain parts of it to count towards aspect of degrees or certificates and that sort of thing. We're also hoping to offer some lived and living experience workforce research grants as well. And so more news about that soon. So that's a bit of a work program. And so to do that, we need to employ 4 new roles within our lived and living experience workforce team. Patch Gore is our lived and living experience workforce manager. Some of us will be supporting her in recruitment to these roles, which are a senior consumer consultant. That'll be a full-time role, we anticipate. A lived and living experience workforce training coordinator, again, a full-time role. A consumers leading in governance coordinator, a 0.6 role, 3 days a week. And a project worker as well, 2 days a week. So keep your eye out for these positions. They will be advertised on our website, and also we advertise all of our positions on Ethical Jobs as well. So you can check that out. And if you go to Ethical Jobs and put in keyword VMIAC, VMIAC, it'll come up with whether we've got any roles currently advertised there. The other thing that's coming up in the workforce space is that there's going to be another round of consumer perspective supervision training to be delivered starting in October 2023. So I know some of you have done that already and given us really helpful feedback around that to pass on to Inside Out and Associates who run that course. So there'll be another intake and there will be a process of expressing interest for that, and we will certainly promote that, as we know a lot of people get a lot out of doing that training. I wanted to mention to you amendments to the Mental Health and Wellbeing Act. As I mentioned earlier on in this update, we are going to do some work around making sure consumers know their rights under the Mental Health and Wellbeing Act. So this part of my update is separate to that work, although it will be related to that work. And this one's not such good news for us. And I have to say, I was quite shocked and disappointed when I heard this news, that what was planned at the 1st of September is that Ambulance Victoria, paramedics could respond to mental health crisis in the community and provide that care and control, as it's called, in those situations. So what's happened is Ambulance Victoria have said they're not ready to do that. Paramedics aren't trained to make the decisions that they might need to change in those situations. So where that leaves us is care and control is with the police and also with PSOs, the public transport support officers. So we know that it's really critical for people about how they come into acute mental health care spaces, and whether they get apprehended or whether it feels stronger than apprehension, and how they're transported. And we know that this has outcomes for their treatment and whether their treatment is compulsory or not, and their experience in these settings. We know that people at their time of greatest need want healing, nurturing, and they're not always experiencing the mental health system in that way. So we were looking forward to this change for paramedics being available to do this in the community when someone's having really big challenges with their mental health. But the legislation is going to actually defer this and not even have a date for it. So we're really disappointed about this. There's a couple of other amendments that went up. One was that the Mental Health and Wellbeing Act didn't have a definition of parent in it. So the definition of parent from the 2014 Mental Health Act has been used. And also there were a couple of reductions in when IMA, Independent Mental Health Advocacy, would be notified. One of those was about a security order being revoked, and one of those was around transfer. And so they're not huge in the context of this act, those changes. But the one I did want to talk to you about particularly today was that paramedics it has been deferred as to when paramedics will be supporting us as consumers in a real great time of need. I wanted to also tell you that we are close to finalising VMIAC's strategic plan. Strategic plan sets a direction for the organisation for the next 4 years, and we've consulted staff, committee of management, and consumers and members, and thank you to those who contributed. We're really close to having a 5-point plan. I won't read out the points to you now because I want to just make sure it gets finalised before we share. But we're pretty excited about working to it, and we're really pleased with the process and the amount of people who have had input into that, and people who have given us really strong feedback about what they think VMIAC should be doing and where we should be prioritising our efforts, and what people have expectations they have of us as a member-based peak body. So thank you again to those who contributed, and we look forward to sharing that with you. It will be on our website, and I'll let you know when it's there. If you don't see it before, I'll let you know. I also wanted to update you around recommendation 29. So recommendation 29 was part of the 65 recommendations in the final report made by the Royal Commission. And recommendation 29, we've been calling our agency, or sometimes it gets called the agency. So it was an agency for supporting consumer work across the system, making linkages for consumers across the system into other bodies like the Statewide Trauma Service and indeed the Victorian Collaborative Centre for Research as well. And yeah, being a place for initiatives and innovation in consumer work and supporting consumer work and consumer groups. So I guess our first part of that we're concerned about is that we wish there had been an interim recommendation in those first 9 recommendations so that lived experience was properly supported and playing such a strong role across the whole of the reform. But as I said, it was in the final recommendations and what has happened in the state budget, which got handed down on the 23rd of May this year, is recommendation 29 was not funded. So a consumer agency in a reform which has said that lived experience needs to be at the centre has not been funded by the Victorian state government for the next 12 months. So we are greatly concerned about this and we are starting a campaign around this, and we've had a number of meetings around strategy for that campaign. So we hope that you hear about that soon. Also, the chair of the Committee of Management, Tricia Zarom, and I are meeting with Minister Williams next Wednesday. So that's on the 14th of June, and we're also meeting with the Secretary, the Deputy Secretary, I should say, Catherine Wetton, of the Mental Health and Wellbeing Division of the Department of Health on next Friday, the 16th of June as well. So we'll be speaking very strongly there about our disappointment about recommendation 29, our agency not being funded in this state budget. It doesn't make sense to us. And more than that, we're greatly concerned about the harm that consumers might experience in the system and in the reform in the absence of a strong agency being stood up and established consistent with the recommendation and how it's outlined in recommendation 29. So stay tuned for more of that, because we may be asking you if you want to be part of that campaign, which might be around writing letters or it might be something else in addition to that, and we'll let you know. That's it for me from today. I hope when you're viewing this, your day is going well. There's a fair bit of news there today, and some of it's not good news for us as consumers. So I hope you're going gently and not experiencing that with too much difficulty. I look forward to updating you in the next update. And take care until then, and thank you very much for tuning in. Goodbye.